as you can tell from the title above today, I am very excited to share with you my positive birth story. My beautiful son, Nolan, came into this world on February 9th of 2025. So at the time of filming, he's about 3 months. Actually, he turns 3 months tomorrow. And yeah, while my birth story is still fresh in my memory, I thought it'd be great to just share with you all my positive birth story that was medicated, because when I was pregnant, I watched a ton of these. I wanted to know kind of how other women's experiences were like, to kind of make the most educated choice for myself when the time came for me. So yeah, I hope you all find this helpful, and grab a cup of tea because we are going to get a little chatty. That on February 8th, I decided to go out to brunch with my husband. We decided to have a really nice brunch before the baby came, and that was the first time I actually had a latte. It was an ubi latte. It was delicious and totally worth it. But throughout my pregnancy, I didn't really have caffeine. I probably only had like one sip here and there. And yeah, it just tasted so good. Obviously you can have like a cup of coffee, but I'm normally not like a frequent coffee drinker anyway. So yeah, anyway, that's that. And I was feeling super good. And I thought to myself, man, if the baby came like tomorrow, I feel super ready. And to be honest, I really feel like, because I just kind of like just almost didn't feel as stressed that day, that it just kind of like signaled to my body like, okay, cool, like we're ready to do this. That's kind of like my theory, but who knows. Anyway, so the night of February 8th, after we had our brunch, I was washing dishes, and basically I started feeling a little crampy. Didn't really think too much about it, because the weeks before I had these feelings before, and they're kind of like Braxton Hicks. So yeah, I just sat down and it felt a little bit better, and I was like, okay, cool. And then I went to bed at 10 p.m. that day, and then I woke up at midnight because I started feeling these cramps that felt a lot more intense in a way. It felt like actual like period cramps, like when I would get my period. So my lower back really ached, and yeah, that it just, the pain kind of woke me up. I went to the bathroom and I was like, okay, I'm just going to try to sleep it off. We'll see, kind of monitor it, right? Then around like 1 a.m., that's when I was like, okay, this pain is actually like to the point where I can't really sleep. I'm like trying to sleep, but I can't really sleep. So at this point, I wake up my husband and I'm like, hey, just so you know this is happening, can you time these cramps? And then as he starts to time it, then that's when I'm like, oh, no, these are real like contractions, because they started having like this wave. It was like this wave. I could feel the wave of pain, and then it would like subside, and I would feel a wave of pain, and I was like, these are for sure contractions. So yeah, my husband started timing them just to see how close they were getting, and basically they were to the point where I really had to breathe through them, and I was like, I think we should go to the hospital, because I live about 30 minutes away from the hospital. And I was just thinking to myself that if it progresses, I'm not sure that I can really stand being in the car with this pain. Also, this is my first baby, so I just didn't want to, I don't know, I just kind of panicked. That's basically what happened. And then I called my mom, who's a nurse, and she was like, yeah, just get your hospital bags ready. And if you really can't, stand the pain, just go to the hospital, see like how dilated you are. So I don't remember exactly like the time between the contractions at this point, but they were starting to get closer and closer. So then we get to the hospital, and it's about like 4, 5 a.m. I want to say. Sorry, my hair is really bothering me today. Excuse me. Anyway, we get to the hospital around 5 a.m. and then they check me, and I am about 3 cm dilated, and you need to be 4 cm to be admitted. So they tell me, hey, why don't you just go outside in the hallway and walk around for like 2 hours and come back, and you should be able to be at 4 cm. So basically, we get to the hallway, and at this point, I've only slept for like 2 hours. My husband also has only slept for like 2 hours, so he's super exhausted. My mom has gone to the hospital, and my husband basically was able to go back to the car, take a nap, while I just walked around in the hospital, in the hallway, with my mom. And at this point, yeah, they were getting pretty intense. I really had to like concentrate on my breathing. What really helped me was I basically leaned over a chair and just kind of like swayed my hips back and forth. And of course, walking really helped. Sitting really, yeah, it was very uncomfortable sitting. So fast forward 2 hours later, they check me and I'm about 4 cm. So finally, actually I'm about 4.5, if my memory serves me correctly. And I was able to be admitted. So once they admitted me, I talked to the doctor and he's like, hey, how are you feeling? Do you want to get an epidural? Do you not want to? What's your birth plan? So at this point, I talked to him, telling him that, hey, honestly, like, I just want to do what's safe for my baby and I. And at that point, I was still able to hang in there. And he was like, okay, well, just let me know when you want to get the epidural. But the questions that I really had was like, okay, I really want to make sure that I can still feel my toes and still kind of wiggle. And I would be able to feel that I'm pushing. The biggest worry that I had was I was worried that I wouldn't be able to feel whether or not I'm pushing. And also just not being able to feel completely anything at all. So basically I waited it out, and I got to 5 cm. So you have to be at 10 cm to push. I got to 5 cm, and really at 5 cm, that's when things really start to pick up in terms of the contractions. It was like pretty painful, and I was thinking to myself, like, if I need to get to 10 cm and get through all of this, I don't think I'm going to be able to have the energy to push. Because just as a note, when you get admitted, you cannot really eat or drink too much like water. Once you get admitted, you can only get like ice chips, and they gave me some broth, some juice, but it's very tiny amounts, just in case you have to have an emergency C-section. So yeah, at this point too, I also only got like 2 hours of sleep. I was exhausted, and even just like managing the pain just sucks the energy out of you even further. And I've heard from my friends who wanted to go all natural. They actually made it to like 8 cm all natural, but by that time they were so exhausted that they eventually needed to just get the epidural to help them push. And that was honestly my biggest fear. And because I was already so exhausted, I essentially decided to get the epidural at 5 cm. And honestly, I am still really proud of myself for being able to make it without the epidural basically halfway through labor. So yeah, I actually don't think that the contractions were that bad leading up to 5 cm, but once it got to 5 cm, it was pretty intense, and I really needed to concentrate to really breathe through it. Now, at this point, I get the epidural, I talk to anesthesiologist, and I say, hey, you know, like, I want to make sure that I can still feel my like toes, I can still kind of like wiggle them, and he made sure I could do that. He just did just enough to kind of ease off the pain, and then he did come back in and check in with me and see if I needed to up it or whatever, and I was totally fine. I was like, I don't need to up it. And then, yeah, it was such a relief when I got the epidural, because I was actually able to sleep. That was so crucial because I couldn't eat anything. And so at this point, I needed to sleep to conserve my energy, to have the energy to push. Now here's where it gets a little juicy. Basically what happened was, I progressed to 8 cm afterwards in a few hours, And then after I progressed to HCM, my progression started to stall. So I was only progressing like half a cm every single hour at this point. And the doctor was asking me, hey, how do you feel? Do you want to just continue and can see how, basically just continue naturally to get to 10 cm, or we can use Pitocin and that will literally kick you into labor. And I was kind of worried about any like side effects. So there really aren't many side effects from what he was like telling me. But at that point I was like, okay, no worries, like we're gonna wait it out. Well, I ended up being in labor for like 12 hours or something like that, like 13 hours actually, because I was only progressing half cm every single hour. So after that happened for about like 3 hours, I was like, okay, just give me the Pitocin. Like we need to get going, because at that point I was already like so exhausted. So once I got the Pitocin, I pushed for like 4 or 5 pushes, and my beautiful baby boy came out. And yeah, like it was so incredible. It was so beautiful, that moment, obviously. And it's just crazy because like all 9 months, right? And then it leads to that moment to have your baby in your arms, skin to skin. And Nolan, my baby boy, was happy and healthy, and he still is, and I'm just so grateful. He's currently napping right now. Hopefully he continues to nap for the duration of this video. I mentioned that I was able to sleep, right? But the only con I would say is that once I got the epidural, what happens is that you are numb from like the waist down, and everything feels very heavy down there. Like the nurse, my husband, and my mom needed to kind of like help me move my legs. They kind of like massaged my legs because it just feels very heavy, and it can feel kind of tiring in that area. But I was still able to sleep, so I don't regret it at all. And I was still able to feel whether or not I was pushing. And actually what's really interesting is that even though I couldn't fully feel the pain of the contraction, I actually knew when I was getting a contraction, and I would look at the monitor and I would ask my husband too, like, oh, is a contraction coming? Because I could kind of feel it, but it wasn't painful. So I thought that was really interesting. And yeah, that's the only con that I really have about the epidural, is that your legs feel super duper heavy. And then after the birth, you need help essentially. The epidural doesn't, like the numbness doesn't wear off until I think about like at least a few hours, sometimes into the next day. For me, I would say by the next day I was pretty much able to walk by myself. But that night, after I gave birth, my husband definitely needed to help me up, and essentially your legs feel like jello because they're still kind of like numb. And my lower back, I would say it still felt a little like achy, maybe for like 1 to 2 days, but afterwards I was totally fine. I hope you all enjoyed it again, and thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.